Welcome, my friends, to the Sage of Quay Radio Hour, your home for free and critical thinking, and I'm your host, Mike Williams. Tonight, my very special guest is Jeran Campanella. Jeran is a critical thinker and leading voice who is questioning the heliocentric or globe Earth model by simply asking the question, is the Earth flat? Jeran's popular YouTube channel, Jeranism, combines his unique style of humor and logic to ask his audience to use their gift of intellect and reason to question what they've been told about the world by the scientific community and the likes of NASA. Our discussion was wide-ranging as Jeran takes us through his own personal journey as he had to discard much of what he believed to be true as he ventured into the highly charged area of flat Earth research. We also spent time talking about the undercurrent of nastiness by shills, trolls, deniers, and those that simply refuse to open their minds to the possibility of a different paradigm. As with other discussions we have had on the flat Earth theory, I strongly urge everyone to listen with an open and critical mind. I believe you'll find the topic extremely interesting and not as bizarre as you might think. And to kick things off, I asked Jeran about his journey in life, and here is what he had to say. So Jeran, can you tell us a little bit about your journey in life? How did you come to investigate and do the research on flat Earth?
Basically, it was about 5 years ago that I had got married. My wife was from a family of Christians, Bible-believing Christians. And I was from a family of Catholics, raised Catholic, went to a Jesuit-run Catholic high school. And when we got married, we wanted to have a wedding that was in the middle. Neither one of us were practicing in our faith, so didn't even know where our faith was. And so we just decided to have a secular, we actually decided to have it in a barn. And it's like a party barn. And I had one of my friends go up and get a license to marry us. And the night before our wedding at the rehearsal dinner, her brother-in-law, who is my wife's brother-in-law, who's actually a pastor at a big church up in Montana, came to us and said, well, who's marrying you guys tomorrow? And we said, oh, actually, we're just having one of my friends go up and get it. And he says, well, you know, if a pastor doesn't marry you, your marriage isn't seen in the eyes of God. And it was just like, you know, kind of the icing on the cake, like, well, this is exactly what you just told my wife that the day before our wedding. And thanks a lot, pal.
Yeah.
So we just told him, take a hike. And I mean, for about the first year or so, or 6 months after, we just kind of had not talked about it, and then we kind of came together and said, if we do have kids, what do we want to do? What do you feel? What do I feel? And when we first got into it, she kind of said, well, I think the Bible is, probably God's word and this. And I said, well, I don't think so. And so we kind of almost went at each other for about 3 months, going back and forth, until we both came to the conclusion that as far as we're concerned, I know a lot of people don't feel the same way, but the Bible's written by men, and that it's been changed and altered, and we're not saying that there's not. I think there's great things in it. I have one right here sitting next to me. But at the same time, I don't live my life by it or think that I need a savior. We have different beliefs on that. So as we started to kind of dig in even deeper, really deep into the the history of both the faiths, and we kind of started to see a bigger deception. And as I started to dig into that, I started to have a problem with, well, first we kind of became atheists. After a year of studying, basically said this whole thing is garbage. I think I'm an atheist. I don't think there is a God. And so we became atheists, and I wanted to kind of go into debate forums and talk to some of these Christians. Well, when I got there, I kind of noticed a trend of atheists that were just basically using the guise of science to think that they were winning these debates. They were just saying evolution, and when the person said, well, evolution makes no sense for X, Y, and Z, then they would say, oh, you're an idiot. You're so stupid. I can't believe, oh, what are you? You're ancient. And it bothered me because I said, I'm not going to go into these debates if I don't understand it. So I went and looking at that stuff and basically just started coming to the conclusion that I had a problem with a lot of the science facts that people would just throw at you and say, that's the way it is. And then when we started really looking into science and you see what the scientific method is, I said, now I'm just really confused. I said, how is the scientific method all about testing and retesting and never being satisfied in your answer, never being satisfied with the result? You should always retest it or try to disprove it. So this doesn't seem like at all what they're doing. Science is the complete opposite of that. They have their dogmas. They have this is set. This is the way it is. So from that, started getting real deep into it to where I started to hate science, and I actually switched to telling people, like, I like Christians more than I like anybody who's an atheist, because at least the Christians have an idea what they believe and they know where they're getting it from. And I felt like these atheists were just, I could not get through to them or understand where they were coming from with their beliefs. It sounded like to me, they just accepted what men told them.
Right.
And I said, guys, what is different? You believe what's in a book that men told you that's written long ago. What is different between that and Christianity? It's the same thing. Well, we don't believe in magical things, and you don't think evolution's magical? The more I looked into it and they describe it, they'll say, well, it happens over long periods of time. I said, I understand that. I said, does it happen like when you give birth to a new species? They said, no, you don't understand it. It's a long period of time. I said, okay, so when you're during that being's life, during that animal's life, then it evolves? Nope, you don't understand. I said, no. It's not me that doesn't understand. It's you. If it doesn't happen at birth and it doesn't happen in a lifetime, that's the equivalent of something not happening. So, and they just won't get it. They just will keep coming back at me and saying, I'm an idiot. I don't understand what they're saying. I don't understand. I need to go read a book. I need to read this. I need to read that. So I never thought we'd get to this point where I am now, because at that time I just got fed up with science and kind of realized more of the truth. I think things started to come to me, and just really the whole deception that's been going on for, I think, 400 or 500 years. And when I started to go back and look at really the underlying reason why all these guys believe this, I just saw it as a religion. And when you look at like peer review for science, I think is a joke. And people talk about it like, well, where's your peer-reviewed paper? Where's your degree? And I say, thank God I don't have a degree. And I would be just like you, I believe what you believe. And so I just don't understand how you have a group of men who all believe the same thing, who say, if you want to change what we believe, submit your paperwork to us. And if it is a scientist who's put in 4 or 5 years of school, and he tries to submit anything that's outside, your career's done. Yeah. And you don't get any funding, and that's what that's all about. So it's just they get to keep their cush little jobs and they tell their little stories. And to me, when I look at the world that they've created, it has no factual basis. They use math to describe things coming from a presupposition of saying, well, the Earth is a sphere, so therefore this is the math that proves it. So that's not the way it works. Math
they back solve it.
Yeah, exactly. And they don't even see that. They won't, because they think you're such an idiot for thinking the Earth is flat. So I actually had a guy about 3 months ago I met through Tumblr back and forth. We were talking about a bunch of different things, and he just had asked me, or 3 months ago, said something like, did you really think the Earth's flat? I said, yeah, I'm starting to think that. He said, I can't talk to you anymore. Can't talk to him. So we stopped talking. Well, just yesterday, he wrote me a message, and he said, it was an email, and he said, I've been really thinking on this for a long time, and I'm ready to accept the 2D world. I wrote him back and said, I never said it was 2D. What are you talking about? I said 2 dimensions, like a piece of paper? So I'm not saying that. Yeah. That's not what I mean by flat Earth. But it's kind of scary, because I almost don't like to talk to people about it, because if somebody really opens their mind as a human being and contemplates everything that people have been saying, Mark and Eric, and it's hard to come back from that. You basically need to close your eyes and just say, nope, it is what they say, or you're going to be pretty sad, because it's everything that there is that we know as human beings is going to break down if what we think is true. So
it's hard to debate anybody on it, because the person that believes in the globe, of course, you and I both know this, that they're so indoctrinated that it's an emotional response that they have. It's not Absolutely. A logical, rational response. It's very emotional. In fact, I have a situation where, because I have been looking into it, that I have somebody that is, close to me, that essentially we parted ways because they just could not believe that I was even entertaining the flat Earth theory. Yeah, it's amazing to me that, and these are people that claim to be critical thinkers and free thinkers. They're in the alternative movement and whatnot, but they just can't get their heads wrapped around this, and they don't even want to be going down the path at all.
No, because it basically can shatter everything that you are. I mean, luckily for my wife and I, that happened first. Yeah. As far as our faith going down and then becoming atheists, then saying, well, now we're not even atheists. Now, we believe in a creator, we believe in a purpose. And so luckily everything for us was, and the reason that we said we want to go back to the beginning, once we just realized everything we'd been told was lies, looking into 9/11, seeing the lies there, and then going through everything and just finding out about World War I, World War II, Gulf of Tonkin. I mean, everything that we found out, I just got to the point, I said, you know what, let's just go back to square one, pretend like we're learning kindergarten, and just demand evidence for everything. Do not allow, I tell everybody on my channel, don't trust men. Don't trust me. I say, I'm telling you these things so that you go out and investigate. Whatever you do, don't trust me, because then we're just doing the same thing that got us into this predicament, which is we all sat there in school and took everything that the teacher said and thought, not one of us ever thought, I wonder if they're telling us this with some sort of an agenda. Not that they would have the agenda, but we would never think that, well, they were taught the same way and that person had an agenda and that was taught by somebody else who had an agenda. So when we went back to the beginning and challenged everything, the first thing you challenge is, okay, let's look where we live. Where do we live? What's going on? What do we see when we walk outside? And from that, you just start to realize, well, why do we think that these stars are suns? To start with that. And you start looking into that and you find out, everybody from 1700 backwards would have just gone outside and seen the same things we see at night by just looking up in the sky. No way you could think anything other than the sun and the moon could be a sphere. The stars look like lights. They look like flickering lights. And if you look at a telescope, which people will say, go get a telescope. Well, telescopes, how are they made? They're made with convex lenses. What do convex lenses do? They make things look spherical. Go find a convex lens in your, liquor store and look in it and see how everything gets sphered out. So from that, it just became one thing after another when you said, wait a second. And we had a problem with NASA. I've always had a problem with that. I never really liked space, personal thing. I don't know. I just was never interested in it. I thought the rockets were too loud. They're annoying. I was just never interested in the takeoffs and that kind of stuff. It just wasn't interesting to me. But when we started really watching some of that footage and, Apollo, I was kind of always back and forth. I knew that smart science people said we went, and you're an idiot if you thought we didn't. And I knew there was a lot of people that said, I don't think we went. I think even my dad was one that said, I'm not sure. Don't think so. And so when we started looking into that, it took me a day to realize there's no way. To me, there's just no way. And from then you start saying, wait a second. Now, if we didn't go to the moon, then we've never been very far from the Earth at all. And then from there, everything starts breaking down. And then you look at NASA and you say, is this just a black market? A theft organization? And you say that to somebody who loves science or somebody who's in. It's the saddest thing. I understand because there's so many scientists out there. My mom's my stepdad, I guess you'd call him, works for Northrop Grumman. My stepbrother works for Lockheed Martin. So these are things I can't just come out and say to them. They would flip out. But at the same time, it doesn't prevent me from understanding that they're very compartmentalized. I know what my stepfather does. He builds engines for a submarine. Has nothing to do with meaning that he knows that we went to space. I was arguing with the guy one time about Apollo. And he said, are you calling my grandpa a liar? My grandpa helped build the Saturn V. I said, no, I'm not calling him a liar. And I said, but if I told you I took my Ford Focus from California to Hawaii and I drove there, and then you denied that you said I didn't, and I told you, what are you calling my cousin a liar? He built the muffler on that Ford Focus. I said, that means nothing to me. Where's the evidence? And I love those guys. They'll say, well, we can see the flags up there. We can show me where. They show you that lunar reconnaissance site where there's a little pixel change, right? And then there's an arrow from NASA saying flag.
Yeah.
But you got that close, but you couldn't get closer. It just is sad.
The issue I have, Jeran, is that, and I mentioned this with the interview with Eric, we have the Hubble telescope out there, and it's taking pictures of everything. It's supposedly trillions of light years away. It's taking pictures of nebula and various suns and planets and everything else. And then we have these deep space probes that are going out, taking these beautiful pictures of Saturn and Jupiter and the moons of Neptune and Neptune itself. And yet we can't get one clear picture of the moon, and we cannot get a real picture of the Earth.
It's unbelievable.
It is unbelievable. And I think a lot of people, they have to start to get their heads wrapped around the fact that that is the reality of the situation. And the way I look at it is there was really no proof of a globe Earth until 1969.
Right. Totally.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, before that, it was
up for debate.
It was up for debate. Exactly right.
Yeah, I don't know why I understand why they love NASA so much, but I don't understand at this point in our human history how there's any organization that you don't require proof from and just accept they're science. It's like they're not even a science they're a government-run organization. And what government-run organization do we know that's honest? It's been 100% honest at least. I always give somebody the benefit of the doubt until they've done something to me that I feel I need to then go and check up on what they did. But like you said, if I was a science organization and somebody accused me of not going to the moon, I'd prove it.
Right.
In a quick heartbeat. I would not just allow people to trash my name like NASA has. I mean, there's people from day one that didn't believe we went. And they have never cared. Obviously, now we've got a rover on Mars. I mean, come on. And you wouldn't send that rover to the moon first to drive them around and show us where they landed, swing around, take a 360-degree picture of the Earth, and let it sit there and watch the Earth as it spins. It's ridiculous that they've never proven anything, and they just stick to the worst science, and they don't even talk. When have you ever heard NASA even address an issue that people have with them? They don't care because they just keep getting the money and keep putting out like you said, they've got Hubble out there, and I know how hard it is. It's hard for me to talk about it because I know what somebody who loves space and loves science, I know how hard it is. But all I ask them is then, before you just say, I'm an idiot, ask them for proof. It's our tax money. Why can't we say, can you go to the moon? It should cost you nothing compared to going to Mars. Send a rover. We're not even talking about humans. We're saying send a rover there to just show us. Have them land there. It should be easy. You did it back in 1969 to 1972. And the years before 69 as far as sending just rovers or satellites. And then they send that lunar reconnaissance thing, and it happens to go at the exact distance that you can almost see what they're trying to show you, but not quite. And they say that's proof. It's like, who would do that? If you're going to send something for proof, it's going to be proof. And then I see these pictures that they went and mapped the dwarf planet Ceres or something.
Right.
The thing landed on there and actually drove around and mapped the entire surface. It's like, why don't you do that to the moon?
Right.
It's just, it baffles me. It's like, there's nothing. I was actually having a debate the other day with somebody who's a big science believer, like you said, indoctrinated. I couldn't even get him to admit anything. But the one thing I did get him on is I kept saying, what has NASA done for us in space? He says, well, they've invented Teflon. I said, no. I'm saying in space. What have they done in space? Well, they've taken pictures of these great galaxies. Okay, that hasn't done anything for humanity. Well, we've been to Mars. What has that done for humanity? Well, it could be something in our future. I said, no, I'm talking about what have they done for humanity? Who gets away with just spending $1 trillion and saying, oh, you're going to see the results eventually? No other organization. And he could not come up with one thing that they've done. He ended up saying, well, dude, but science is really, space is really cool. Like, okay, that's worth $1 trillion, that space is really cool. If they had done one thing, maybe I could give him a break, but I can't see giving him a break. I think somebody needs to be all over them, and I don't know who's going to do it. It's not, sad
Well,
because
I think it's implied proof. It's people just believe, well, it's NASA. We shouldn't even be questioning it,
Right.
And because, as I mentioned before, the indoctrination is so deep, and then they have all of these TV shows and these movies, Jeran, it started
So
really,
many.
right, Star Trek, right, which, by the way, Rand Corporation was very deep into as far as getting Star Trek up and running. A lot of people don't know that. And then, recently we had movies like Interstellar and Gravity. And so, people watch this stuff. And as I mentioned again, when I was talking to Eric, they didn't need to do any more Apollo missions. That ended in 1972 because after 1972, number one, they probably figured they were going to get caught sooner or later for fudging this stuff. But Secondly, and probably more importantly, is they felt all we need to do is just send people off to the movie theaters.
Right.
That's all we need to do. It'll serve the exact same purpose, and it'll be even better because we can leave it to the movie theaters and the production companies to create this magnificent image and story and so on, and people will just buy into it.
I can't picture that. I can't picture them thinking they would ever get this far. There's no way you could predict, and I don't mean to be rude to anybody, I don't think you could predict the stupidity of humans to this extent. They must have thought they would be caught at some point way before. I don't know, but maybe not. But I mean, it's 2015, and I mean, you've got these cameras that zoom in like crazy. You've got these video cameras that are unbelievable with HD, and you're telling me we can't just send a satellite out and put a video on Earth?
Yeah.
I mean, that should cost nothing. I mean, what's it going to cost? $5 million? I mean, that's nothing for them. That's nothing. It's an afternoon spending. And what it would do for humanity to at least, I mean, if they could just prove it, think of everything. All of us that are talking flat Earth have to shut up. Everyone who's talking about NASA and saying that it's not real, all of us would have to shut up in a second, and they don't do it. So what does that tell people? What else could it mean if your girlfriend or boyfriend says they didn't cheat on you and you think they did, and then they show you a picture saying, well, this is where I was that night, and it's a little tiny pixel of them. I mean, you're going to say, that's your proof? I mean, You're not going to take that as proof. You're going to say, no, I need to see something better than that. But because they're science, people see that little pixel and say, see, there it is. And that stupid show Mythbusters that, I mean, what a joke that was.
They sold out. They sold out.
Oh, bad.
Big time.
And then I hate I was watching this interview with them, and they were showing when Buzz Aldrin hit that Bart Seibel. And I'm not one that says that he should have been in their faces like that. I don't think that was right either. But he asked him about it, and one of those Mythbusters guys says, oh, Buzz Aldrin's my hero for doing that. It's like, that's who your heroes are? People who punch people in the face? It's like, fantastic. You're a winner. But, and I don't even know how Buzz Aldrin does it. I can't. I mean, and look what happened to those two guys after, I mean, how do you just become, you're the first man to ever walk on the moon, national hero, and you become a recluse, like Armstrong. And Buzz Aldrin, did you read his book?
I did not read his book.
So his book, The Magnificent Desolation, he admits in there that his mom committed suicide a year before he went to the moon. And that's something that people didn't know back then at the time, because he admits in the book that the family went to the doctor and told them to lie about her cause of death. So it's like, why would you admit that? If people think you lied about going to the moon, now you're saying, we went to the doctor and lied about. It's like, I'm just saying, people are either honest people or they're willing to just lie when they need to. And that doesn't seem very honest to me. On the other hand, it kind of scares me that, did something happen to her? Like NASA did something? I mean, I don't know. Who knows?
When they talk about Grissom, the theory is that because he was way too vocal about what NASA was not.
Right.
The other thing, too, is that NASA deleted and or lost all of the Apollo evidence, facts.
Unbelievable,
pictures,
huh?
Right? And if you're listening to this podcast, folks, they did that. And you can go Google it for yourself. The original material is no longer with us. The greatest achievement of mankind.
Yeah, and the sad thing was, it's not like they admitted it when they realized it. Somebody did one of those Freedom of Information Act requests, and they wanted the footage and the telemetry data and the medical data, and NASA came back and said they lost it. It was 700 boxes and a total of like 13,000 reels, the Saturn V blueprints, the LEM, the lander blueprints. I mean, the fact that we can just say that and anybody can just say, it happens. I mean, you don't lose 700 boxes unless you lose them on purpose. You just don't. It doesn't happen. They say, we recorded over them like it was nothing. And they say, it was because of our budget cuts.
Right. They said they had to save money.
They had to save money, so they had to, I mean, come on. It's just really, really sad. And again, you can forgive anybody a mistake. I'm not one to, I make mistakes every day. But I also don't tell people you have to believe everything I say. I'm saying the absolute truth because I know I make mistakes. But these guys are going around like, oh, you don't believe us? We went to the moon, but we did lose that. We did do this and we did do that. And you said about Gus Grissom, and then wasn't there the investigator who did the report on that Apollo 1 fire, gave like a 50-page report and basically said NASA was not following through with any of what they were supposed to be doing. And there was another thing. There was a elderly lady. I guess her husband had known Neil Armstrong, and he had given him a small moon rock. It's actually like moon dust. And he had passed away, and this lady was kind of running short on money. And she made the mistake of calling NASA first and saying, hey, I've got this moon rock. Do you know how I can go about selling it? And they basically told her no. Well, then they set her up by calling her and arranging a meeting place at a Denny's or something down in Southern California. And she went in there and sat down at the table. Before she knew it, she was getting dragged out by, she said 15 NASA officials came in there, dragged her out in the parking lot. I guess she said she had to pee her pants, and they stole the moon rock from her and said, you're not allowed to have possession of this. It's government property. And I mean, that makes no sense. I mean, they could have given her the money if they wanted it that bad. Go pay her for it rather than drag her out and steal it from us. It's theft. You can't just steal from people. So
well,
that, I mean,
it's intimidation too. It's intimidation tactics.
Yeah.
In case anybody else has any funny ideas about doing something like that, here you go.
Yeah, it's really, it just scares me because that's not a scientific organization to me when they're coming in like a SWAT team. And how's that science? So yeah. And then once you realize that NASA may not be all they're cracked up to be, and when you start really looking into them and seeing, who are they started by? Wernher von Braun, and where did he come from? And these guys weren't the best of people, and I don't think they had people's best interest at heart, any of them. And then if you look at their patches, NASA's patches, go back and look at every one of them. They all have occult symbolism.
That's right.
Yeah, it's just, and then you start seeing that, and you're like, what are you guys doing? And then you look at the dates and the times that they launch these rockets, and they're all numerology, and yeah, it just gets really, really sad.
No, it goes back to Jack Parsons and
yeah, that's
right?
scary. Yep.
Yeah, it's all occult. And again, people don't know this. Now, Jeran, let me ask you this question. Are you of the opinion that there are no satellites and there's no technology deployed in space or low Earth orbit, or if there's a dome, that this technology is not deployed right at the very edge of where the dome begins? Or do you have a position on that or a take on that?
Yeah, I wouldn't say that because since I have never seen a dome, I can't say that there is one. Although last night I was shining my laser up at the sky and it stops at something. It was really kind of weird. But I would not say I've seen one. So I do not think that the video that's shown on the ISS Live, I think that's done in a studio somewhere or a warehouse. It's not the Earth. It's not where we live. But then again, and satellites may not be real. I mean, the more I'm looking into that, the more I'm seeing. I've had a couple people email me that work with satellites that say they shoot them 50 or 60 miles. They have to be perfectly lined up with the one they're receiving. And that can't happen on a sphere. 50 or 60 miles, the drop is about 1,000 feet of curvature. So how are you lining up two satellite dishes to talk to each other? And so, I would not doubt if there is nothing up there, then maybe there is no. But then you have to say, what are they doing on TV when they show us that those guys inside that space? Is that just a zero gravity simulator? That's pathetic. Then I mean, you're talking. What are all those people? There's been a ton of scientists. I know there's been about 250 or 300 just from the United States, but then you have to look at the ESA, you got to look at the Russians, you have to look at Japan and China. That gets really pathetic because now you're talking about a huge global hoax.
Right.
And but where's the proof? That's the thing, is if there was one shred of proof besides them just saying, here's us on TV doing it. I mean, we've all seen movies that look incredible. They're fantastic. And you can kind of allow your mind to venture into that looks real. And I think that's what happens with this footage, because now I watch the ISS and there's nothing that looks anywhere near real to me. I was telling my wife, like, I don't know if I'm evolving or everyone else is evolving, but I just look at it and I say, that's not real. It's just not, I don't know why I feel that way. It just certainly doesn't look like anything that's any way reality. Yeah, once you open your mind, it sucks because you just wish everyone had their eyes open, because I think the world would be so much of a better place if we all had agreements. I mean, people think conspiracy theorists are crazy. And I mean, this guy yesterday that I was debating with, I was saying something about 9/11. He says, wait a second, you think your government had something to do with 9/11?
Oh, please.
And I said, I can't talk to you anymore. I said, I really can't even, I'm not going to talk to you. I said, you're telling me you think a plane hit the Pentagon? He said, yeah, there's video of it. I said, I've seen that video. You mean the flash?
Yeah.
Okay. So you're going into that situation. He was trying to tell me I'm going into my videos with a confirmation bias. And I said, how are you not doing the same thing when you say that? That just because the government said a plane hit that building, I said, look at the hole that's there. Wings can't just disappear. And he just, like you said, they are so closed off to that. They're so conditioned. It's crazy.
The beauty of the system that's in place, the matrix that's in place, is they just love divisiveness and separating people. Just have these discussions and the debates and the arguments and throw stones at each other. In the meantime, while everybody's doing that, they're continuing full steam ahead with their agenda. And the thing is, the flat earth is no different than 9/11 as far as, that type of debate. It's no different than the Apollo moon landing hoax.
Well, the only difference I would say that there is if people would just allow their minds to open for a second, we can test the flat earth. Hard to test whether or not we went to the moon. It's hard to test now when they've taken all the steel, shipped it off to Japan, and they've completely erased, and they purposely put out 100 different stories, the no plane theories, they've completely muddied the water. There's no way we'll never know the truth of 9/11. I mean, we know enough of the truth to know, how it went about, and that it wasn't just some Arabs from a cave with box cutters, but we'll never know the absolute truth. It's now too much of a mess. But with the flat earth, that's something that can be measured. That's something that I think can be easily proven or shown, but we're not in charge. The people in charge are the ones who can stop us from doing that. And that's what I did. Like yesterday, we went out and tried the laser test, and we're going to go back tonight because the beam that we shot across, we were shooting across 4 miles of water from Lovers Point, Monterey, California, to across the water to Seaside. And the beam on the other side got to be about 10 feet in diameter, was something we weren't expecting. So considering we were only looking for a 10-foot curve, that kind of invalidated our results. But in doing that, we came to the conclusion that my wife was on the other side, the cameraman was on my side, but she said after I was shining at the ground, I said, you can't see this light over there, can you? She goes, I see it. I said, wait, get all the way to the water and then crouch down. She said, okay. And I took the laser and put it down about my ankle height and just shined the laser right to my foot. And I said, can you see the laser? She said, yeah. I said, Earth's flat.
How far away was she?
She was 4 miles.
Okay.
So we're talking, I was a foot off the ground. She was maybe 3 feet. So we're talking 4 feet total off the water level. And the curvature should be 10.5 feet at the very, least. So
right.
It was unfortunate because we were live streaming the whole thing, and everything that didn't work was live streamed. And then when the thing died, my phone went dead, and we were just testing some other things. That's when we realized, so all we need to do, so what we're planning on doing tonight is just doing that same test and having a camera on the other side to just zoom in the camera from the water level and show that the laser is shown. That's such a bright light that it's easily seen. So luckily, I think that now I don't know what's going to go from that. They'll probably explain it away with refraction, explain it away with mirage. That's the words that they use that have no mathematical formula. It's just, it's a mirage. It's like, come on, you can't just say that. I said, no, go look it up. Here's a Wikipedia link. It's like, no, that's not proof, guys. It's not enough proof for me. And so we'll see. It's going to take a lot more, obviously, than just that. But, I don't think that everything they've been telling us is true, especially when you say to people, where's this between California and Hawaii? It's a 770-mile curvature.
Right.
And you say, okay, show me how we can measure that. And they say, well, it's mathematics. So, well, if math is proving it, then you're saying that the physical has already been proven, and you're showing us the math to prove it or to double prove it. So you can't just give us the math. I had a physics teacher, I'll always remember, who said he could write a math equation that would say that an elephant could, with his trunk, hold onto a piece of grass and hold off the edge of a cliff, and he could write that equation and prove it true. And that was something he taught us in class. And it was amazing to hear that. 'Cause like, wait a second, like, okay, I guess I understand. But he basically said equations can be written for anything, but they have to be proven, or at least have the preponderance of evidence, and then you can use math. And math is a useful tool. I mean, somebody told me that you don't believe in math. I said, no, I absolutely. If somebody says we have $16, we need to separate it between 4 people, I can do that in my head. But if somebody says we've got $16,410, and I need to, how do I, we know that math will prove the reality there because we've got the reality to double check. But when you just say math proves the globe, okay, well, let's go measure it. Well, we can't. Why can't we measure it?
Right.
And they just don't have an answer for that.
And the funny thing is math also disproves the globe, right? Because if we apply the Pythagorean theorem and spherical trigonometry, which is the math that needs to be used, then the Earth can't possibly be a globe. And, one of the examples that we can use, it's probably something most people can get their heads wrapped around, is a lighthouse.
Right.
And if a ship is 20, 30, 40, or 50 miles out and they can see that lighthouse, they shouldn't be able to see that lighthouse.
No, not at 50 miles, I think, is about 1,000-foot curvature, and that just doesn't make sense. And if you look around now, people can check this out. There's a lot of lighthouses that they've pulled down, taken them down, moved them back, done the weirdest thing. They spent like a couple $1 million moving some that, forgot the name of it, but the lighthouse over there on the east coast of the United States, they moved it back from the edge of the water. They put it back like a half mile and said it was going to get wrecked by the ocean. It's like, you guys are doing some weird stuff. But yeah, the thing I always tell people about, I think it's the easiest for them to grasp, is the fact that we know how water reacts. We know how water acts in any kind of a pool, in any kind of a bucket, in any kind of a tray or trough. Water has to remain flat. There cannot be a curve in water. And people will say, well, what about a drop of water falling off a leaf? I say, no. That's in the process of falling, but wherever it's going to land has to be flat.
Right.
And just the idea that they believe that this huge ocean, think of the Pacific Ocean, this huge ocean of water has this huge hump in it, and the water just stays like that. And that's probably one of the easiest things. The other thing I hear from everybody is, well, what about the southern stars? What about the southern stars? It was funny last night, the cameraman we actually hired a cameraman. He's not a believer in this, but he was kind of getting into it when we're talking about these things, and he was kind of starting to see some of what we're saying. He's like, yeah, I never thought about that. He says, but, they'll never get rid of the southern stars and the northern stars difference. And I said, pointed him right out there. They said, okay, look out that way. I said, we're looking north, right? I said, see how these stars rotate counterclockwise? He said, yeah. I said, we know that in the south that they rotate the other way, right? And he said, yeah. I said, turn around. We both turned around and looked south. And I said, now which way do they rotate?
Right.
He said, oh. He's like, well, that can't be it. I said, that's it. He said, that's what they're able to do, is they completely mess up your mind and make you think things are happening that you just need to come to grips with reality and say, don't think of the things they taught you, because there's a reason they taught you that way. But he kept turning around and saying, that can't be it. That can't be it. You're doing something wrong. I said, no, that is it. It's just as simple as if you're looking north, they go one way, and if you turn around, they go the other way.
And you have an excellent example of this, Jeran, in one of your videos where you illustrate if you're facing north, the stars will rotate in one direction, and then if you turn around and you face south, then the stars are rotating in the opposite direction.
Oh, good. I'm glad you saw that. A lot of people, I don't think I saw that.
That was a great example. It really illustrated it for me and clarified it for me, because it can be a little, you're trying to figure it out in your head, because it's almost like an illusion. It's tough. Yeah.
Yeah.
It is tough.
Same thing I think I did with the Coriolis effect, which is another one that, and the way I've been coming to these conclusions is I just take everything and take it like I'm a sixth grader, and just really try and figure out what are they trying to say. And I watched this video that's actually explaining it to kids, and when they did that, I realized it's the same thing, that they say one thing happens in the northern, one thing happens in the southern, and they leave it at that. But if you take the same thing and just reverse it, then it's either you're disproving their theory or it doesn't happen, one or the other. And then you read about it, and you read it's a fictitious force. And, Newton's experiment, his thought experiment about shooting the cannon, and you can shoot it too far and it goes out in space, or you can shoot it too short and it hits the earth. And if you shoot it just right, it rotates the earth. He came up with that with no idea that the Earth was spinning, with no idea that we were flying through space at 66,000 miles per hour. So, of course, when they need to change that, that's why they add all these little things. It's like progression. Copernicus came up with the sun being at the center and us rotating the sun. But how far is the sun then? Well, he said it was 3 million miles. And where would be the proof for that? They didn't even have telescopes.
Right.
So these things were all thoughts. They were just ideas. And somebody liked them so much that they said, we're going to keep this no matter what. And so as somebody said, wait a second, now this doesn't make sense, they handed that notebook to an extremely smart mathematician and said, make this work.
Right. And by the way, now the sun is 93 million miles away.
Right. Yeah. And it went from 3 to 12. 12 was the next one after 3.
Right.
And they just have to keep changing it. And that's the thing about the stars, the distance that they are, they just had to put them so far that the fact that after a year of us traveling through the universe in crazy, 66,000 miles per hour, I think we go 580 million miles or something in orbit of the sun. And then the sun supposedly going around the galaxy at crazy, I think the total is like 11 billion miles traveled by the whole galaxy in a year.
Right.
And we end up and the stars are right back where they were. And that's crazy. I mean, it's just, I think, you'd said something about trillions and trillions of miles. When I saw one of those pictures from Hubble and it said 300,000 light years, I said, no, I got to do this math. And that came out to 1.8 quintillion.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you saw my video, but I said,
I did.
Yeah. To put $10 in a hat every second of every day of every year. How long do you think it'll take you to get to 1.8 quintillion? Everybody guesses. The cameraman yesterday guessed 500 years. I said, no, it's 5.8 billion years of putting $10 in a hat every second just to get to 1.8 quintillion. And everyone just believes it. That's how far stars are. And their suns, and our sun is just one of many, and it's just it's a belief. That's all it comes down to. I mean, and I have nothing against anybody who wants to believe what they want to believe, but believe it in your house, believe it with your family. Don't take it to school, don't take it to public places. And unfortunately, they're teaching this in every top educational facility everywhere in the world.
Oh yeah,
as fact.
Yep.
I mean, if that's not dumbing down the world, what is? It's like really sad.
Well, and just to give some numbers out to the audience, Jeran, just in case some folks are just getting on board, the Earth is supposedly spinning at 1,000 miles an hour at the equator. It's orbiting the sun at, you had said 66,000 miles an hour.
Right.
The solar system is rocketing around the Milky Way at 500,000 miles an hour.
Right.
And the Milky Way is supposed to be hurtling through the universe at somewhere near the speed of light. So
1.3 million. Yeah, and then if you just take that and look at the distances that you travel,
right,
because miles per hour, there's 24 hours in a day, you can start figuring that out. They're astronomical numbers that are, and we don't feel a thing.
That's the thing. We don't feel a thing. You can walk outside and your hair stays still. Yep. There's nothing. And of course, they will explain, well, that's because gravity pulls the atmosphere, and so it's all relative, right? So that's their explanation for that. But it's ridiculous because when you really think about it, with all that movement, all of the stars, the constellations, they stay in place as they have been for thousands upon thousands upon thousands of years. Sundials work with amazing accuracy. How does that all come together if everything is moving?
Yeah, it doesn't.
It doesn't.
I asked somebody in one of my videos, I said, okay, I understand that now, so we're traveling 66,000 miles per hour. I said, why when we went to the moon, wouldn't the space shuttle just get out in space and wait? You could wait, since the moon's traveling 66,000 miles per hour too. It would take 3 hours to get to the moon. How do you fly for 3 days towards the moon if the moon's going the other direction, 66,000 miles per hour? And then they can't really explain it because I said, are you saying the atmosphere of space is like the atmosphere of Earth? Because Earth's atmosphere is the presence of air, the presence of gases, but you tell me space is the absence of all those things. So which is it? How can space all move together as well? Then we're not moving. And I think, I forgot who said that, but somebody said, yeah, sure, you can believe that we're doing all these things, or you can just believe the Earth is still. Everything that they've put together, 66,000 miles, going this far around the galaxy, that's all just to prove that we're a globe. You can just strip all that and say we're flat, and everything still works. Now you can explain the stars. Now you can explain, basically everything. And a lot of people tell me, if you look at the comments on my channel, it's everybody saying, prove it. What's the sun? What is it moving in? How's it doing this? I say, listen, your science folks have had 400 years to put together a very impressive little package that they can't prove. Give me 400 years. I promise you I'll prove it. Unfortunately, I don't think I'm going to have that long.
The whole thing is just stretches reasonableness. It really does. Once you start to look at it, you have to start asking questions. I really am surprised at the folks that don't listen to it at least a little bit and just stop and pause and think and say, okay, hold on a second. Let me just think about that a little bit. These people that just reject it out of hand, that to me is a bit disconcerting. And I've run into that. They just do not want to listen to it.
Especially when those same people will tell you that, lizard aliens are running the earth. They're okay with that. But if you say the earth is flat, then I'm an idiot. So, like I said, I'll listen to anybody. This whole shill talk lately in the flat earth movement is ridiculous because I'll listen to anything. I'll listen to anyone and anything, and I'm smart enough to be able to hear what they say and assess it and test it or research it. So I don't like anybody saying, no, you can't say that. Especially these people who are all about science who say, you're an idiot, you're going to go test the flat earth, what an idiot. I said, wait, I'm saying I'm going to go do science, in the field science, that would prove your beliefs, and you're telling me not to. I mean, what does that tell you? It's sad.
That's because you were a moron, Jeran.
No, believe me. It's funny, when we went live yesterday, I brought the tinfoil because I was going to go live with tinfoil on my head. You just got to embrace it because who cares? If I'm that stupid, then something would eventually come up where I would prove that it's a globe, but it's not going to happen at this point. I mean, now I'm deep enough in it that there's no way. It's just everything we look at, every single, thing that we even try and put together, it is absolutely impossible to live on a globe. It's just upside down people, like you said, spinning. I mean, I asked people, if you lived up in Seattle, you're spinning about 400 miles per hour. So let's say you live there your whole life, 20 years, and then you fly down to Florida. Now you're spinning 900 miles per hour. That person doesn't get off the plane and lose their mind and fall into shambles. I mean, how do you think of 500 miles per hour, what a speed difference that is. It's crazy that they just say, nope, that doesn't happen. And that's just the explanation. It's just, nope, it's the way it is. Sad. Science.
In one of your videos, I swear to God, I was laughing so hard. You said, all I want to see is NASA take a picture of Australia with the buildings upside down.
Right.
Right? And when you think about it, that's exactly the way it should look.
Right. And people say, no, you don't understand. It's all relative. They're right. I said, no, what you're saying is magical. If you're saying that, I understand when you say, okay, it's relative to each person. That's fine.
Yeah.
I can accept that in gravity. But then if you're on the outside of that sphere, like NASA is, they're the only ones that are out there. Oh, and SpaceX, this private company SpaceX, gets military contracts. But if you're on the outside of that sphere, then you have the perspective that you would see somebody on the top and somebody on the bottom. So like you're telling me, and they just pretend like we don't have cameras that good. Like, come on. I've seen ridiculous. These cameras that you have. You can't just zoom in and show me everyone living upside down as the buildings come swinging around. And you think they would just go make a movie about it. They could probably do better CGI, but they don't even try. I mean, they just say, we're not doing that. Sorry.
Well, this whole thing where they turn around and say, we don't have the technology or the cameras to do that. That goes back to my point before. You have these deep space probes that are taking pictures of Saturn and Jupiter and Neptune, and you could just see every detail. But that same camera can't be used to take a picture of Earth. It's ludicrous. It really is. And I don't even know how people accept it. I don't know how they just throw their hands up and go, oh, okay, I guess that's the way it is.
Yeah, and then, the other day I saw a picture of, they said, closest the things got to Pluto, and it looked like a little blob. And it's, what are those other things you're showing us? When you show me Saturn, and it's this beautiful thing with the rings, and and then they say, this is the closest we've gotten, and it's a little blob, and right now they say that the Voyager spacecraft is 12 or 13 billion miles from Earth, and it's almost out of our solar system. And then the ISS needs to go down every 45 minutes because it's on the dark side of the Earth. It's like, come on. We don't get to watch 24-hour video of the thing flying right outside the Earth because it's on the dark side, yet you're talking to the spacecraft flying, and it's just flying fine. All that gravity, all those rotations, it's not hitting anything. Just goes through the Oort cloud like it's nothing. Just goes through, I don't hit no meteorites hit me. That's another thing about they tell you micrometeoroids. They tell you the amount of them that hit the Earth. They tell you the amount of satellites that are flying around the Earth. But you go watch the ISS video, there's nothing hitting it. Where's all these satellites? It's just perfectly in the place that you can't see any of them. And I think it's something like 40,000 tons a year of micrometeoroids make it to the Earth. So imagine how many are actually hitting the atmosphere and burning up. And those things they say are about a gram. So they're not very big, but they're flying at 20,000 miles per hour. So they're 20 times as fast as a bullet.
Right.
And these guys were just walking on the moon like nothing. They would have been pierced. It would have been a constant barrage of bullets.
Exactly. And there's supposed to be, 20 to 30,000 satellites orbiting the Earth? And every time we see something up in lower Earth orbit, I never see any satellites.
I never have.
I never have either. Now, if somebody can show us that, we're not trying to be funny here, but if somebody can show us, and it's not a CGI, I like the pictures they show of satellites that some other satellite took a picture of.
I know. Isn't that funny?
Yeah, that is kind of interesting. This
guy was debating real quick. He just said that, he said, you said you've seen the ISS? And I said, yeah, because, I have an app that tells me when it goes by. And one time we finally saw it, went outside, and the night was clear enough. And it's just a little plain-looking dot. It's about a star, but brighter, maybe twice as bright as a star. And it moved all the way across the sky just like they said it would. So he asked me if I saw it, and I said, yeah. So at the end of our debate, he's like, well, at least we got to the conclusion that you now believe in the ISS. I said, well, what do you mean? He said, well, you've seen it with your own eyes. You believe it, right? And I said, well, what are you talking? I told you I saw the dot go across the sky. You think that means I believe now in the video on the computer about the 20? He's like, well, yeah, you saw it and you're denying it. I said, how do you put those two things together?
Yeah.
I'm saying, yes, there's a light that goes across the sky. It doesn't mean anything to me.
Yeah, it could be anything. It's something is traversing the sky. So what?
Could be a light, could be a plane. I don't have any doubt that those pictures that are taken of the Earth I'm talking about the nice ones, satellite pictures.
Yeah.
That's probably just taken by a high altitude plane. Maybe 80,000 feet or 50,000 feet. I don't doubt that they have that. If we're flying commercial jets at 50,000 or 40,000, I'm sure they can double that. But doesn't mean that they're in space. Doesn't mean that they're floating in zero gravity. Doesn't mean the Earth's a ball.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. And all we're saying is just come forth with the hard evidence. And hard evidence is not, NASA says so. That's not evidence. That's not fact. And so that's all we're asking for. It's just to bring that forward. Now, Jeran, let me ask you this question here. We talked a little bit about this before we got the show started. Now, your videos are really well made. There's a lot of humor in them, and they are very point blank, especially with regard to NASA and the ISS and so on. And I know that your YouTube subscriber base has grown significantly. But let's talk a little bit about maybe some of the detractors. What kind of problems or issues, or what are you seeing as far as folks that are pushing back, the shills, the trolls? What types of behavior are you seeing?
Well, I'm one of the few, at least that I know of, channels that leaves the comments up. I know Mark and Eric Dubay, I don't think, allow comments. And I was, at the beginning, because I didn't know anything about making videos, so at the beginning I kind of left them up just on accident. But I started seeing everyone who was against me was just cursing and calling names, and people are idiots and they're dumb. And it was the same thing I was seeing in Facebook forums 3 years ago when I was trying to debate that just because they are on the side of science, they immediately get to slap on the intellectual badge and they're better than you. And so I wanted to leave those up because I thought it was good for other people to see. I might be wrong in that. Maybe it's people they'll come and see what I'm saying and then they see the comments and they agree with those people. There's a chance that's happening. And that's just a chance I'm willing to take, because if they see the good and they see the people they're saying, I've felt so in the dark my entire life, and now I feel like I'm starting to, it's completely freeing. It's the most freeing. I feel better now, 35 years old, than I've ever felt, just because I don't feel like I'm locked into this you have to believe this because we say so. There is no proof for it. Just deal with it, which is what I had to deal with in religion. I asked for proof of everything. I didn't get any proof. And then when atheism say, well, okay, show me proof of evolution. Even Richard Dawkins, biological, evolutionist, and there's a video of him online, 5-minute video of him explaining evolution. I've never heard anybody sound stupider in my life. We were a worm, and then we grew legs, and we walked out of the water, and we became amphibians. And I mean, it's just, that's great. That's a nice little story.
Exactly.
But, I mean, just give me some proof. So I'd say that the only thing is, I don't regret doing that. It is hard to take. Somebody already made videos about me. That was something I wasn't prepared for, I guess. Actually seeing your name in a title, Jeranism debunked, Jeran horseshit. And then he gets on and just starts ripping into me. I give people cancer. I mean, things like that. It's just, you're like, it's frustrating, but at the same time, I just had to learn. It took me a day. There was one day I went, you can go look on YouTube and see, for a day I was fighting back with comments because I was just livid. But at the same time, he was lying about me and quote picking, taking basically, there was one time I was saying the curvature and doing the math. And because if you listen to the video 2 seconds before he took the thing, I was talking about feet. Well, then he took the math and did it on his calculator to show that my math was wrong, but they didn't convert the inches to feet like I just did before that. So things like that. And then all his little groupies come in and laugh at me and what an idiot. And I hope this guy doesn't reproduce. And I said, haha, I already did. So, and I just have to laugh at it because especially the more you realize that one day, I don't know if it's going to be even in my lifetime, one day those guys are going to realize they're wrong. And that's sad because I feel bad for them because there's no way they can ever apologize to everyone that they've treated the way that they're going to treat people. And and I don't hope any bad on anybody. I don't hope that their heart breaks or, I mean, it's sad for me because I know at least I don't treat people that way. I don't, even if they believe that, I don't go to them and make videos about, I've never called out anybody on one of my videos by name, never said anything. I do make jokes about the Globetrotters and, but I'm not calling people out by name individually because I'm trying to say the whole, and I tell people all the time, I believed it too. It's not like I'm saying I'm better than you, that I know something you don't know. This guy said, what do you think you came up with the guy yesterday, you think you came up with the answer for the whole world? You think you have the answer? You think you have the more answers than the scientists? I said, I'm not saying that, dude. I'm saying I learned like you did. And then I've now been on this side, and I'm trying to tell you there's two sides to the story. I want you to see my side. You've been on one side, and you won't even come over here and just listen for a second. And I say, that's the difference. I'm just asking you play both sides. And I was forced into playing both sides, and that's why I've seen religion. And I was deep inside the church. Like I said, Catholic high school, Catholic junior high. My mom's the music director of a Catholic church. I worked there. I was good friends with priests. My godfather's a bishop. I mean, I have been in that. So I know religion. And then I was a full-fledged atheist. So I know what those guys are doing. So I feel like I know every comment. I feel like I can anticipate things that people, I do delete occasionally people that are, way too rude. Because I tell people, I don't mind if you call me an idiot. Do so politely. You don't need to come across as I'm completely out of my mind, and don't even say it. Don't make a comment though. I mean, if I saw a video on YouTube that said that I believe in the pink pony is God, I wouldn't go to that video, watch right. The whole video, and then yell at the person in curse words about I wouldn't even watch the video. It's like, what are you doing watching my video? If you think I'm so stupid, you just watched 45 minutes of me being stupid for what reason? So I know these guys have a doubt. Yeah. They've got something in their mind, and the way that they confirm that they're correct is by joining the other people that jump on my back. And slowly, maybe take a year, maybe 2 years, maybe those guys will start dwindling. I think just in seeing the eyes opened in the last 4 months, by the time that we walked out of that experiment last night, the cameraman was standing at our car for an hour asking questions, just, man, you've screwed up my life. And I kind of feel bad about that sometimes, but at the same time, like, it's so good because I want people to know the truth. That's what's important. You only can live life in the truth. You can't, I feel so bad for like my grandparents. They were born had kids, worked their 9-to-5 jobs, and really never, not that they didn't have good lives, but they just didn't really do anything great because they were forced into these beliefs, forced to do what the government told them to do.
Right.
They worked like little slaves, made their taxes, paid their taxes, and I did too for the first 34 years of my life. And that's sad because I really look at it now. I feel like I have to work double hard now till I'm 60 because I blew the first 35 and going along with their story. I worked for a drugstore as a store manager, making money for the corporate business, and I don't want to do that anymore. I mean, yesterday we're out there. That's what I felt like life should be. We're out there at the beach doing testing, laughing, having fun, looking at the star. I mean, it was like awesome. And that's what life should be if it wasn't for I have to pay my mortgage and I got to pay my bills and I got to do this. And those things aren't, and they're not important. They're not real. They're not even real. I mean, they're just setups. They're all setups by the government. They've hidden every kind of free energy or any kind of anything like that. And we know those things. I mean, big thing for my wife and I was the Tesla deal. I mean, the fact that we were not taught Tesla in high school or in any school. That's right. That's insane. He was the best inventor of the 20th century.
He was a brilliant man.
Yeah, and you're talking radio and wireless communication and lasers and fluorescent light bulbs and X-ray. I mean, invented all that, and they just went with the Edison light bulb, Einstein relativity, and that's what we were taught. So it's when you start finding out the truth, and then you hear what happened with Chase and Morgan and how they basically wanted them shut down, and now they're the biggest bank that there is, and it's just you start to put things together, and you're like, this world runs on money.
Yep.
And those guys, even though I can't fathom it, because I don't care how much money you gave me, I would not wreck people's lives so that I could have money and be rich. It just doesn't make any sense. Even 5 people's lives, let alone hundreds of millions. I mean, I don't know how you have that mindset. I don't know if they're different kind of people than you and I or what, but I know humans are hungry for power and everything, but you give me a couple $1 million and you're just going to see me relax and take life easy for the rest of the time. I'm not going to go around and I need more. I need to block knowledge. It's like insane. What are these guys thinking?
Well, there's a distortion in their consciousness, and they do not think the way you think or the way I think. Hopefully at some point, people who do think that way will come around. Some will never come around. They'll go to their grave being who they are, essentially anti-humanity and in it for themselves. But going back, Jeran, to what something you said before about essentially, critically thinking and feeling very liberated because you basically clean sheet this thing. And instead of just going with the program, you said, you know what, I'm going to investigate this. I'm going to research this. I'm going to go take a look at it. And by the way, I'm sure that if you found that the earth wasn't flat after you were doing your tests and your research, you would say, okay, well, I was wrong. Let's move on to the next thing. But
absolutely. Yeah.
Right. So, and the thing with these other folks that are attacking you, and to a certain degree, I've had a little bit, not a lot, not like you or Eric or Mark, nowhere near what you guys get. But what I don't understand is the same thing, all this belligerence and this nastiness. And if they feel so strongly about something, if they feel so strongly that the earth is a globe, then what they should do is they should gather their resources and their brain power and go put their own videos out there, go put their own blogs out there, their own websites out there, put their own thoughts and research out there. But they don't do that. They don't invest their time and energy that way in a productive way. What they do is they attack. And that's the sad thing that I shake my head over, is all of this nastiness.
It's a ton. And even within it, it just seems like there's so many different feelings and beliefs, and even if you don't believe this model, and people get mad at Mark because he says this, and I'm just not into that, because I say, let Mark say what he wants. I mean,
right.
If we can test it and prove that he's wrong, believe me, he's not going to stay. He's not the kind of person that's going to say, nah, I still believe it. It's like, no, we tested it. Here's the proof. Nah, I still believe it. I mean, not one of us is like that.
Right.
So I don't understand that position. I think that science is all about testing and retesting. And if something doesn't work and it's proven wrong, you're supposed to throw it out. And science says that's in their definition. Yet when they observed things in the galaxies that weren't working right with gravity, Did they throw gravity out? No, they invented dark matter and dark energy, and that makes up 95% of the known universe, and they say it's never been observed. And that's what we're teaching kids. And we're just all supposed to walk around like drones and say, yes, that's what the galaxies are made of, is dark matter and dark energy, and it's never been observed. It's crazy. It's like, how is that science? I thought science was the physical proof, with tests and retesting, and then they come up with these things that have been disproven many times, like the Foucault pendulum, and
Right.
Things that just the thing I keep hearing is well, what about the toilets that flush the wrong way in the northern hemisphere and the southern hemisphere? And I mean, even if you go to Snopes, which I don't recommend going there all the time, they do say that we went to the moon, but they do have some good points like that. They just say flat out is not true, that's something that has been told for a long time, and you can do your own tests on it. It has to do with the way the bowl is shaped, or it has to do with the way the water's coming into the bowl. But these are things that if you asked 100 people, is that one of the proofs of the globe that water flushes? 98 of them would say absolutely. And so they're not doing any research. They're just repeating what they've been told. They're like little parrots. They just I tell people all the time, your handler is treating you well. You know, your controller is doing a good job. You're repeating exactly as you were taught.
Right.
And I did the same thing. I mean, I did the exact same thing that they do. It's just finally I was able to realize there's two sides to every story, and why not explore both sides? What is the worst thing that could happen? That you are proven correct? Wow. You know, I mean, I don't understand what the big deal is about. Let me just take a look at this. I mean, if you ask Neil deGrasse or Bill Nye, hey, let me just talk to you for 5 minutes about the Earth being flat, they would right off the bat laugh in your face and would never give you another second. It's like, hold on, aren't you the one promoting science, the greatness of science, how it's the greatest thing that humans have ever put together, this accomplishment of knowledge? So let me just say what I want to say, test it with me, prove me wrong, show me why I'm wrong. But they won't even let you. That's what makes me think they're in on it, which I don't like to think that. I like to think that they just are indoctrinated like everyone else. But if they were, and they're fans of science, when somebody comes, they would take the time to say, let me look at both sides. Let me show you why you're wrong. It's like that Brian Cox, and there's an open letter form that's been up there for 6 months now at that site, allus.com, and he won't answer it. And it's, to me, I can't imagine being a scientist and somebody bringing legitimate questions and me just saying, I don't have to answer that. Yeah. They're not on my side. You know, it's like, another thing is that video I have on have you seen the video with some Christian radio host who calls Jack Horner? He's the one that found the dinosaur bone that had a little bit of a cartilage in it. And when they found that, which has never really been found before, it's not supposed to.
Oh, I actually did see that. Yep.
Yeah, and they wanted to just have it tested and have it carbon dated. And because they already know how old dinosaurs are, they refused to carbon date that bone because carbon dating only works at 50,000 years. But the cartilage in there would tell us that it's definitely under 50,000 years.
Right.
And he flat out says on that phone call, no, it wouldn't be good for us. It wouldn't be productive for us.
Right.
And that's their idea of science. And he said, no, we won't test that. And they offered him $20,000. We'll give you $20,000 donation to the museum. Send it off. We'll even let you send, I think, 4 additional items to be tested. We just want to see what it comes back. He says, no, the test will be wrong because it will come back less than 67 million years. So it can't be right. So that's when you go into things with a presupposed belief. And if you're going to do that, then that's not science. That's religion. That's, you can't go into the Catholic Church and say, well, I don't think, Jesus is God. Nope, sorry, you're not allowed to say that. This is Catholic Church. Jesus is God. You can make other decisions after that, but these are our you have to go by this first. And so if science is going to do that too, I certainly don't want to follow science. I'm not into being told what I have to believe just because men say so. Show it to me. Prove it to me,
They do that with everything, Jeran. I mean, they do that with the pyramids, the Sphinx. This is the storyline. And this is how we're going to present it, and this is how it's going to be. Anything outside of those parameters is completely ignored. If it doesn't fit how we want to play it out, then that is not going to be factored in. So,
and I just wish, if that's how they want to play it that way. But the rest of humanity needs to understand that they are the antithesis of science.
And that concludes my interview with Jeran, and I hope you enjoyed the discussion as much as I did. Links to Jeran's YouTube channel and his other social media connections are listed in the show notes below. And as always, I'd like to thank everyone for listening and visiting the blog. You can get to the blog by typing in sageofquayradio.blogspot.com or simply head over to our hub website at sageofquay.com. Also, if you get a moment, please visit laboroflovemusic.com to listen to my album, Leaving Dystopia. And remember, live in truth and always serve creation. It's really that simple. See everyone next week. Be safe, enjoy, and God bless.